What's going on, everyone? Hope you're doing well. Welcome to the English TV Live podcast on YouTube. We're going to start posting our podcast episodes here, and you can listen to them here on YouTube. You can also, if you'd like, download them on our website, and you can listen to them that way while you're cooking, while you're walking, exercising, doing whatever. That's how I like to listen to my podcasts. So follow the link in the description if you'd like to do that. In this very first episode of the English TV Live podcast. This was released a while ago, but we're posting them on YouTube now. In this first episode, you're going to hear a conversation between Lloyd, who is one of the co-founders of English TV Live, and myself. And we're going to talk about the history of English TV Live. We're also going to teach you some useful idioms that you can learn along the way. All right, so enjoy the episode. Let us know what you think, and take care. Bye-bye. Welcome to the very first episode of the English TV Live podcast. I am joined today by Lloyd, who many of you probably know, and if you don't know him, you will get to know him. Lloyd, what's going on?
How you doing, Jacob? It's, I was going to say long time no see, but that would not be true at all.
Yes, that's certainly not true. We met yesterday.
We did, and we're always in contact. But it's always nice to talk to you regardless.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. So let's just jump right into it. This is episode 1 of the English TV Live podcast. And what I thought we could do in this episode is kind of tell the story about how English TV Live got started. So the plan is to tell the story about English TV Live, but also to teach you guys 3 different idioms that you can use to sound more natural in English. As we tell the story, I'm going to introduce these idioms, and we're going to pause after each one, talk about what the idiom means, how you can use it, when you should use it. One problem, and Lloyd, you can tell me what you think about this. This is something that I see a lot of English learners struggle with when it comes to using idioms, is knowing when to use them and how to use them to sound natural. I see a lot of English learners using idioms inappropriately. They'll learn a new idiom and they'll understand what it means, but they won't know exactly when to use it. Do you find that too?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I love idioms. I've made a lot of videos about idioms, and I love teaching them, but yeah, I have seen that a lot of times when people use idioms too much. They overuse them. So they will use a sentence full of idioms, and it's not really necessary. So with idioms, you want to try and use them kind of sparingly, not every kind of sentence or several times in a sentence. But they can make you sound more natural, but they can also be overdone. So you have to be careful with that.
Awesome. Yeah. And so with this episode and in future episodes too, I think I'm going to do quite a few episodes on idioms. I'm really going to try to teach you guys idioms that native speakers actually use. For one, there are tons of idioms out there that no one uses ever, some that are very old-fashioned. So we're going to teach you idioms that people actually use, and we're going to tell you exactly when you can use them. So let's get started. And like I said, let's just start talking about how English TV Live got started. So I think this was back in March, in 2018 in March. Lloyd and I did a podcast together. And at the time, I was podcasting for my own podcast, the Jacob Teacher Podcast. And I had been in touch with Lloyd for a while at that point. We had been in touch online. We had sent messages back and forth, and we had planned to do something together, but we hadn't yet. Finally, I invited Lloyd onto the podcast. We met for the first time on the podcast, really. And Lloyd and I hit it off immediately. And that's the first idiom that I want to teach you today, to hit it off with someone. Lloyd, why don't you take over here and tell people what that idiom means, to hit it off with someone?
That is a nice idiom. I like that. And I do agree. Yes, we did definitely hit it off. So when you hit it off, this is when you meet somebody for the first time and the two of you have a connection right from the beginning. So you've never met before, but the first time you meet, you feel very comfortable with each other. You're on the same wavelength. That's another idiom. So you hit it hopefully that's not another one you're going to talk about today. But okay, just double checking. So yeah, hit it off. You can use this in a few different situations. Obviously, in our case with the podcast, we hit it off in a friendly way. But you can also use this pretty commonly in a dating way, in a dating scenario. So let's say you go on a first date with somebody. Maybe it's a blind date, and you've never met before, but you hit it off. The two people on the date, let's say a man and a woman, go on a date and they immediately have a connection. They've never met before, but they get on very well. They hit it off.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say that's a very common case in which we use it in a romantic context. When you do go on a date with someone, if you hit it off with them, it means things are going well. Lloyd, have you hit it off with anyone recently?
Well, just to be clear, when we're talking about Jacob and I, we were not talking in a romantic, or maybe we were, not in a romantic way. Not in a romantic way in this case.
Right.
What was the question, sorry?
The question was, have you ever hit it off? Have you hit it off recently with someone in a romantic way? So I'm making the distinction now, and I'm asking him about romantic partners.
It's been a while since I've had that sort of, initial, sort of another word you could say is chemistry. So when you first meet somebody, it feels very natural, a lot of chemistry. It's been a while since I've really, really strongly hit it off with somebody. What about you, Jacob?
Yeah, I would say the same. I think it's rare to hit it off with someone in a romantic setting too. With friends, sometimes you get along with people really easily, and that's nice. But to find someone who you really have a connection with on that deeper level in a romantic way, I think that's more rare.
Yeah, it's not every day that when it does happen, it's definitely a special thing. So probably quite a while, I would say. But when it does happen, it's a special moment. It's a magical moment.
I agree. It is quite magical. So if you guys are listening to this right now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to our website, EnglishTVLive.com, and find your way to this podcast post. You'll see at the top there's an option for podcast, and you can find this episode, and there will be a blog post with it too. And in the comment section of that blog post, I want you to tell me about a time when you hit it off with someone. Now, you can tell me about someone who you hit it off with, like a romantic partner, if you want. You can also tell me about a friend who you hit it off with. Like Lloyd said, we don't always have to use this in a romantic context. We use it to talk about people who we just get along with really well. So in the comment section, tell me about someone who you hit it off with. And why don't we move on? So Lloyd and I, like we said, we hit it off. We did the podcast together. And after the podcast, I think maybe a month or two passed, and we didn't speak to each other very often online. But eventually I sent Lloyd a message, and I said, hey, that was really fun doing the podcast with you. Why don't we talk about how we can work on a project together? And this, again, I think this was around March or April, maybe, and we started talking. We met quite regularly. I'd say maybe once a week we would meet on Skype, and we would talk about different project ideas. Eventually, I ended up moving to Ottawa in May, and at this point, we had been talking about a number of different ideas that we were interested in, and we decided to move forward with English TV Live. One of those ideas was English TV Live. This was back in May. And I remember right before we moved forward with English TV Live, right before we made that decision, I was speaking with Lloyd, and we had been talking about so many different ideas at this point, and I just said to Lloyd, you know what, let's just move forward. Let's just move forward with this idea. Let's just start English TV Live. We both like it. I feel like I've got paralysis by analysis right now, and I think I used those exact words. And that's the next expression that I want to teach you today: paralysis by analysis. So Lloyd, I'll pass things off to you again. Why don't you teach everyone what this expression means?
So as Jacob said, we were talking for months on end is another good expression, months on end, when something continues, keeps going. and we were overthinking it, overthinking. So we were thinking too much, and we were just thinking at that point, all right, we need to get started. We need to do something. We need to we need to get going with English TV Live. So paralysis, if you're paralyzed, you can't move, right? So if your body is paralyzed, you can't move. But you could also be, in another example could be paralyzed by fear. If you're too scared to do anything, you can't do it. You feel like you're paralyzed. And in this case, paralysis by analysis, which has a ring to it, right? It rhymes. So paralysis by analysis, a nice little expression there. So when you're overthinking something so much, and because you're overthinking, you're not doing anything. You're just thinking, and you're not taking any action. So sometimes it's better just to do anything instead of thinking too much. So paralysis by analysis.
Yeah, and this is one of those idioms that I would caution you about, because it's definitely not one that we use very often. It does sound quite strong. If you've got paralysis by analysis, there is this this connotation of suffering almost, I would say. It's like you can't decide what to do, and it's really causing you to suffer. So I would say be careful when you use this. Don't use it too often. As Lloyd said in the beginning, use it sparingly. This is one that you should use sparingly, but it's a cool one. I like it. I like how it rhymes. Paralysis by analysis. Lloyd, do you often suffer from paralysis by analysis? Are you someone who's good at making decisions, big decisions?
I feel like, well, I do sometimes, but I feel like maybe you suffer from it a little bit more than me. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, I would say probably. Yeah.
I think Jacob suffers from paralysis of analysis quite a lot. I think everybody does sometimes, and of course I do as well. But I try to try not to overthink things, because I find when you overthink things, you're stopping yourself from actually doing the things. So I do sometimes suffer from the paralysis of analysis, but when I realize that I am in that state, as Jacob and I were at that point, I try to, snap out of it and just do something.
Yeah, I think that's actually why we work well together in some ways, because I tend to overthink things and let's see what's wrong with certain things. And you're not the opposite, but you do that less. So that works well, that tension, I think.
I think so. I agree with that. Yeah. Sometimes you just need to, as in the case of this, with English TV Live, you just have to we just had to get going, to get started. Otherwise, we were just going to be paralyzed in that analysis forever. But as Jacob says as well, not something you would use every day. You wouldn't use this if you're just for an everyday thing, like you're at a restaurant and you can't decide what you want to order. You wouldn't say, the paralysis of analysis. What should I have? The hamburger or the cheeseburger? You wouldn't use it for that. You would use it for more serious situations where there's quite a big, maybe there's more of a consequence from the decision.
Yeah, I think next time I'm at a restaurant and I can't decide what I want to eat, I'm going to use this expression just to be funny. If you want it to be funny at a restaurant, you could use paralysis by analysis when you can't decide on what to order. But like Lloyd said, use it for more serious, consequential decisions that you have to make. So anyways, that was 4 months ago. That was in May when we were having a little bit of paralysis by analysis, and we decided to move forward with English TV Live, and we started making videos together online. We've done quite a few things since then. We just opened up our private community to the public in the beginning of August, and we're moving along, and this podcast is part of this project. And Lloyd's also doing a show on YouTube, a daily live show called the English TV Guide. We have a team of 5 teachers together in total, and you're going to be hearing from more of the teachers on our team on this podcast very soon. But that's the story of English TV Live, and here we are today. And the last idiom, moving towards it, Lloyd, I was thinking the other day, actually I've thought about this a few times, one thing that's pretty interesting about what we're doing is that we've never met in real life. We've only met online, which is kind of crazy to think about, isn't it?
That is pretty crazy, yeah.
And
But it's the same with Emma and Terry and Natalie. We are colleagues, co-workers, but we have never physically met in real life. It's very crazy.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we're trying to start a business together without ever having met in real life is a sign of the times. That's the last
nice one
that I want to teach you guys today. If something is a sign of the times, that thing is kind of an example of what society is like right now. Okay, so I just said the fact that we're trying to start a business together without ever having met in real life is a sign of the times. It's 2018. You can start a business with someone. You can develop a relationship with someone online without ever meeting them in real life. It's a sign of the times. It shows what society is like. Now, tell me what you think about this, because I think with this expression, most often it's used in a negative context. So it's almost used to critique society almost. Would you agree?
I guess it depends how you use it. Yeah, probably more negative than positive. It's almost like you're acknowledging, it's like you can't do anything about it. That's just how it is, right? It's a sign of the times. Probably more commonly used in a negative way, yeah. I hadn't actually thought of that until you mentioned that, but yeah, probably more in a negative way.
Yeah, I remember.
But I would say at the same time, it's amazing. at the same time, that the fact that we can run a business together, having never met. Hopefully, one of these days we will, right? Hopefully,
yeah.
But in theory, we could never meet again. I hope we will. we will. But you could never meet somebody, and you could, run a business with them, talk with them every day, all these things without actually even meeting each other. So it is a sign of the times that this type of thing is possible.
Yeah, exactly. And in this context, I was not using it in a negative negative way.
Yes,
so
exactly.
You can use it in both. I would say more often than not, when you hear this expression used, it's used in a way that critiques society. For example, a few years ago, I was with my sister at a restaurant, and we were talking together, and this family of 5 came into the restaurant, and they sat down at the table. And as soon as they ordered their food, every single one of them pulled out their phones.
Yeah.
And they were looking at their phones, and they weren't communicating at all. Every single one of them, the mother, the father, and all 3 children, had their phones out, and their heads were buried in their phones. And that was a sign of the times.
That definitely is a sign of the times. That would be a perfect example of, a negative way we would use that. Again, maybe you go on the bus or the train, same situation, right? Everybody is, as Jacob said, buried in their phones. Nice expression there. So your head is buried into your phone. I'm sure I've been all around the world, and it's the same situation. So it's a sign of the times.
Yeah, the phone on the table too. That started happening. I don't know when exactly. It seemed to be kind of a sneaky thing, but all of a sudden, everyone's phone, including me, I do this all the time now too.
Yeah. As I talk to you, my phone is on the table. That has been the case for, that must have been about 5 years, I would say now.
Yeah. I hope your phone's on silent mode. We're doing a podcast.
Let me just check. Let me just check that. Yes, of course it is. It is now. Yes. Yeah. No worries. No worries. Please, nobody send me a message now.
So, you guys, if you are listening right now, again, you can go to our website, check out the blog post. There's going to be some bonus material on the blog, so that will be the best way to listen to these podcast episodes, is to listen to them first, then check out the blog. And right now, for this idiom, this expression, you can leave us a comment and let us know what you think. Tell us about something that's a sign of the times. There are plenty of things that you can choose from, I'm sure. And we look forward to reading your answers. But that's about all I have to say today. Lloyd, do you have anything to add before we sign off of this first English TV Live podcast episode?
No, it was nice to do a podcast with you. I think this is the second time we've done audio podcast together. The first time was the first time we met, so it was fun. And yeah, nothing else to add.
All right. And yeah, we'll be doing more podcasts soon with Lloyd and with Emma and Natalie and Terry and the other English TV Live teachers. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye bye.